This one will sound familiar.
Welcome to The Big Puzzle. In this podcast, we explore the subtle connections between science, religion, politics, economics, and history. One piece at a time, we unveil the big picture of this shared experience that we call life.
So the reason why this one will sound familiar is because we're going to be talking about the family. And I also want to test the microphones, noise cancellation, driving in the rain with a busy I-15. So if I just get distracted, I'd rather get distracted from talking and not from driving. And if I utter any curse words, well, most likely are not directed to you, unless you're driving here. So, family. This week in our church curriculum, we are to study the proclamation to the world about the family. And it's a very interesting document. It was actually presented before I got married, so a few months before I got married. And at the time, it seemed kind of a lot of, common sense things. Yeah, there was some doctrine there, but really it didn't look revolutionary at all. Many years later, things started happening, and that document became more and more relevant, especially to help us understand and to help us explain our beliefs and the reasons for our beliefs. But today, I don't want to just focus on the spiritual side of the family, but on the practical side. And I think it was more than 1 year ago, probably, can't remember which of the episodes of The Big Puzzle I talk about that. But I know one of the first ones I was talking about normality. I think it was the very first one. And then I also talk about society and how societies are organized and self-organized and around principles and values that are attractors. So how do we connect all these pieces together? Well, a big part of the discussion around the world, particularly the United States, has been about the definition of marriage and the state definition of marriage. So how do we define marriage in the law and the different privileges, rights that are given to those families? And here is the problem. The first problem is we need to ask, why would the government care about families at all? Why would they care about marriage at all? And if we don't understand that, then everything downstream from that would make no sense. And that's where we are today. So the reason why people are asking for new definitions of marriage is because they want to marry people that they couldn't marry before. One of the most common ones is the same-sex marriage. Right? But one could argue as well for other type of marriages. So could be incestual marriage. Could be, marrying minors. Could be marrying yourself, marrying an AI. Even polygamy or free forms of marriage are all considered. but they're not all the same, right? So why would people want to get recognized by the state in these new types of marriage? Well, to start with, is because the state gives benefits to people who are married. But why would the government care again? What's the difference? I'm married, I'm single, I just live, work, pay my taxes. Why would the government get involved, in the definition of marriage and in the family in general? Well, it has to do with the purpose of society. So the reason why we organize in societies is for, having better lives, to agree on certain values and principles that we all want to live by, and that would benefit everybody. But one of the most important functions of society, in particular assigned to the government inside society, is the preservation, the self-preservation of society. And that is where the family comes in, right? Families is about the preservation of society. First of all, families are the way we bring new people to replace the people who leave the society, mostly by dying, right? So somebody dies, you have children, and you can continue the society, continue the values, continue the principles. Also, the family takes care of those children until they grow up and they become, like we used to say, functional or productive members of society. And that is something that the government should be delegating in families for a lot of reasons, right? But particularly because, again, we're always talking about the ideal, because societies are formed around ideals, acknowledging all the potential problems, but they have to be an ideal. And the idea for the family in society is that they will take care of each other. So that takes a burden from the government. And also not only they would take care of each other, but they would do it in the most efficient way. We talk about this again in the past, but one example would be, you have 3 siblings and 2 of them are struggling. One is struggling because they had a sudden illness, and the other is struggling because they have a gambling addiction. So they are both struggling economically, let's say, but the way to help them is completely different. Now, you as a sibling, you know them, and you can find the best way to help each other. Each of them, I mean. If you delegate that help all the way up to the government, especially to a centralized government, the government doesn't care. It's not going to be efficient, even if they try to, but that they don't, because there's no incentive to be efficient. But they will just treat them the same way, and that wouldn't help either of them. Will be definitely unfair. So all that delegation from the society to the family, to the role of the family, is very, very important. Now, I was mentioning all these different forms of the new families or new marriages. So if the type of family, and I mentioned they're not the same, and let me talk a little about that. Do these types of families fulfill this societal role? If they don't, the government has nothing to say, nor positive nor negative, right? They shouldn't get benefits if those people are not benefiting back society. So for instance, same-sex marriage, well, they don't have children. They can't have children. Adoption, okay, that's an edge case, and we can discuss about that any other time. But naturally they can't have children. You say, well, people who are have fertility issues. Well, again, edge cases. We're talking about what we can generalize. Laws are about generalizing things. Are not about particular cases. Particular cases have to be defined under particular circumstances. So if you're not going to have children, then why would society give you benefits taken from the people who are actually having children? And we are seeing that now. So all this population collapse is putting a lot of burden on the families that actually decided to have children, to raise them, to fulfill their societal role, which is expensive, which takes a lot of effort, a lot of time. But, people who did not do that for selfish reasons, just because they didn't want to, well, then they benefit from some other people, and that is not really fair. And, this connects to another piece of the puzzle where I talk about a couple of them. I talk about population collapse. Also, the idea of taking care of each other in a family has to be considered. It's not just about having a family and then that family doesn't take care of their children. Then again, it's useless, regardless of the form of the family. So what we're experiencing is a shift in values, a shift in beliefs, in a society that is designed to be stable. So that creates a stress between, the reasons why we do things, the reason why we have certain laws, and how those laws actually work, and they really make no sense. My proposal would be, okay, everything is so messed up now regarding about this topic that I would take the government completely out of the family business. Would that work? I don't know, but I don't think it will work worse than it's working now, and at least would take that stress off society. You want to marry whoever, it's on you, right? You're not going to get any benefits from the rest of society for that. Either if you're doing the right thing for society or the wrong thing. Now, as always, I advocate for a libertarian point of view, but I think that the libertarian point of view is kind of limited. I think it should go farther. I believe that you should be free to do whatever you want, but also you should be free to talk about things. You do whatever you want, but I want to have the freedom to tell you if what you're doing is right or wrong. And also, I have to listen to other people who might say to me if they believe what I do is right or wrong. So that's just being libertarian in the sense of, oh, you do whatever you want. It doesn't work if we don't have that higher value of sharing what is good for everybody. We have to do things because we want to, not because we're forced to. But we all need to share with each other what is worth living for, and we should be able to share about the consequences of our actions, right? So pure individualism is absolutely wrong, and I think that role should be fulfilled by religion, by the true kind of religion, right? That will turn what otherwise will be an unstable equilibrium, like we talk many times, right? Because individualism and selfishness are very connected together. But if on top of that you put a set of values that create a very stable equilibrium, a set of incentives for you to remain at that point of unstable equilibrium, then everybody would benefit. But it's hard. It's hard. So everything usually defaults to, socialism. Let's have the government decide. Let's have the government force you to do things for society. And obviously that doesn't work. Everybody's more miserable. So we are dealing with interesting times in that regard. I'm currently reading another of Ayn Rand's books, the Fountainhead, and it's very, very interesting to me. Again, so as a libertarian, you tend to align with some of the principles that Ayn Rand tried to promote different ways, but I also see the limitations. Again, I don't think that libertarianism with atheism is going to work, and that's why when you read it, all the people, the way she describes people, they seem kind of very superficial in a sense, very one-dimensional. Oh, this person is like this person is like this, and we are not like that, and we are fighting battles internally all the time between what we know we need to be, even if it's not at the conscious level, and what we are and how to navigate that, and understanding our relationship with God and the purpose of our lives, and all those things. So you can't separate them, because you wouldn't have the full experience. So well, I don't know. I was planning to talk about something else, but slipped my mind. Well, regardless. So again, the idea, what I want to invite you is to think about how can you use your family to better society. Oh, this is the other thing I wanted to talk about, because I think it's also kind of interesting. One of the ways that people sell the idea of socialism is, well, it's just like the family. In the family you take care of it. You just said it. I'm just taking what you said and to a whole society level. So basically everybody in the country, hopefully in the world, will be part of your family, right? And that I mentioned when we talk about again, normality. I think that I think I talk about Norway, and people say, well, Norway is a good example, But yes, because this is not an on-off thing, right? So the model of socialism does work only at very, very small sizes. Families could be one example of that. Extended families, neighborhoods, communities. Now, when you reach a point in which you don't know personally people, that is when socialism stops working more and more. So it would never escalate or scale all the way to a country. Even Norway is having some struggles, because the reason why it works, sort of that limited version of socialism, is because the society is very homogeneous. They live in very small towns in the fjords. They all have a shared immediate destiny. I mean, if they starve, they all starve together. So historically they've been fishing communities. So basically, if the fishermen don't catch any fish, it doesn't matter what you do in the town, you will struggle. So you would naturally take care for each other. And if a fisherman gets sick, you would probably dedicate some of your resources to help them, because you need him and you know him. And you know that he wouldn't be taking advantage of you because you know him personally. So that is why it kind of works. So what is the problem there? Well, the problem again is the country is growing, and there are, like all the other countries, basically in Western world, their population is shrinking. And that brings a lot of stress because, like I also mentioned, at some point, families are supposed to be a pyramid scheme, right? And if you stop the base, then eventually the head will, or the top of the pyramid will collapse. So the way they're solving the problem is not by having more children, but by adopting adults. What's the problem with adopting adults? Well, that you can't pass them as easily the values and principles that created your society. They bring their own culture, their own ideas, their own religion, and they will do whatever they would want. They don't care about you. They didn't come to your country to love you, to integrate, to provide for you. They came for absolutely selfish reasons. Valid? I don't know. Each one is individual. But definitely they didn't come to be part of your society, to learn your language. And well, now these fishing communities are not the same, because these people wouldn't go to the fishing communities. They will go to the big cities, and then they will take advantage of your welfare state. Because why wouldn't they? It's not their society, it's not the value, free things. Why wouldn't they take them? Even if when their own values are about taking advantage. So it's getting complicated. I think that's clear enough. But again, if we all can think about how can we contribute, these videos are try to be my contribution. And I really hope that people watch it to think, even to disagree, because maybe I'm wrong. And I would love to be proving wrong. I say, oh, you're missing this central piece of the puzzle that invalidates all the things that you say. Well, thank you, please, let me know. I don't enjoy being wrong. But if you don't tell me anything, I will still believe that I'm right. So right or wrong, let's try to figure out this together. Let's think a little more about the places where we live, the values of society, how can we help create this stable equilibrium, wherever we go and with whatever influence that we have. Okay, this has been long enough. Stop raining. So I will just keep driving. Thank you for commuting with me, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.